I just have to start by saying that I am not a seasoned public speaker. As a matter of fact, this is public speech number 2, so I'm a little bit nervous, and I brought notes, but if I have anything to offer that could help anybody in Alabama as far as closed pods or ChemPAC or any of the programs, I'm more than willing to share, and to be panic-stricken standing up here. But I know we have a lot of medical personnel in the audience, so if I faint, you guys can revive me. But anyway, I'm going to start off by giving you a little bit of statistics on our closed pod program in Mississippi. Like Alabama, we focus heavily on trying to get as many closed pods as we possibly can. Cindy and I back there are definitely soul sisters where it comes to closed pods. We both believe in them. It's a win-win situation for everybody. And when I came on board in emergency preparedness a little bit over 2 years ago, there was a strong focus in Mississippi on closed pods. They told me that from the very beginning. We have a goal to get a half of our population enrolled in closed pods. So it's a lofty goal, but I think we can get there. We've got a great emergency preparedness team, and they work hard to go out and recruit. And that's what I'm going to tell you a little bit about today, and then tell you a little bit about our ChemPAC transportation plan, and then I'll be through. I will not take the whole hour, I promise. But Mississippi currently has a total population of 3.1 million, and we have 1.29 million people covered in closed pods. That equals about 672 closed pods. We have all of our Mississippi hospitals and all of our Mississippi nursing homes currently enrolled. We're trying right now, our focus is on the vulnerable populations, and so I'm working with the Area Agency on Aging and the Planning and Development Districts, and we're trying to get all of our homebound as far as it's not called Meals on Wheels. I did not realize that was a brand, but it's the same thing. It's the same type of program, but I'm working with them to try to get all of them covered statewide in closed pods. So in Mississippi, we follow a modified medical model where I think you guys follow a medical model. Ours is modified, and I think the difference in that is just that where the big discussion yesterday in dispensing and distributing, that's the major difference. I think with you guys having to have the pharmacist, we have to follow the algorithms and the standing orders, but we allow distribution, at our pods and at our closed pods. So we don't necessarily have to have a pharmacist or a physician there. We do have to have a medical oversight. It's called medical oversight, which I don't know what that's, I know you guys called it something different yesterday, but it's just a physician, a pharmacist, or a nurse practitioner that's acting under the direction of a physician, and they have to sign off on that closed pod. They have to agree to be the medical oversight, and what they do is they just agree to ensure that the closed pod follows the standing orders set forth by the state health officer and follow our algorithms, just as they would do in an open pod. So before 2015, we only had physicians in this position, but that was our number one handicap, and there was a lot of facilities that really wanted to be closed pods, but they did not have access to a physician. They didn't have a workers' comp physician or, someone that did physicals. They didn't have access to any of that. So it was a handicap for them. So brainstormed and decided that, you know, a pharmacist would fill that position very, very well. So we went to the Board of Pharmacy, we asked for a spot on their agenda, and went to the Board of Pharmacy and presented a little bit about the SNS program and a little bit about closed pods, and told them why we thought that a pharmacist would be a very, very good fit for that position. They agreed with us, and they voted unanimously that day to allow us to use pharmacists in that position. So since then, we've been able to recruit several closed pods because we've been able to match pharmacists that wanted to do. They volunteered, you know, of course it's strictly voluntary, but they volunteered to oversee that position, so we've been able to match them, and it's been a really, really, really good fit. We have an SNS pharmacist consultant that goes around to private pharmacies and like all the conventions, like I think some of you guys do too, and they try to recruit pharmacists. So it's been a very good partnership. So the two things, as far as like the medical consultant, they only have two basic responsibilities, and I think I touched on those before. One was to guide the closed pod site in dispensing the medications or vaccinations according to the standing orders and algorithms set forth by the Mississippi State Health Officer, and they're outlined in our SNS plan. And the other is they also have to use our health information forms, just like I know that's similar to what Alabama does too. They have to agree to use those. You know, those have to be turned into the CDC. And although they do not have to be on site during an incident, they just have to be available by phone to answer any, you know, any questions, anything that might arise as far as allergies or contraindications. That's all. They don't have to be on site. As far as recruiting closed pods, one of our districts had decided that they wanted to do something a little bit different. They wanted to try a different approach. And they approached us in March of 2016 with the idea of having this like a blitz. It was just a recruiting, closed pod recruiting campaign. And they decided that they would start with the county that they were in, that their headquarters was in. And if that was a success, then they would push it out to the other 8 districts. So this campaign that they did, it took 5 months of planning. They planned for this thing a long, long time. They put a lot of thought into it. It was the brainchild of our CRI coordinator up in that area. She brought it to the district preparedness team, and they thought it could be successful, and then she brought it to us at the state level, and we told them that we would support them any way that we could. We knew it would be a lot of work. Whenever she outlined what they wanted to do, we knew that it would be a lot of work, but we thought that it would, you know, it would accomplish what they wanted to accomplish, so we told them that we would support them any way we could. And the results of that was that day they signed up 5 new closed pods. This is just that day. Now, I don't know about afterwards. I was there for that day, so I know that day they signed up 5 new closed pods locally, and they signed up 1 statewide closed pod, which was the Department of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries. And I had been working on them from the state level, but I did not, my contact, I just didn't have the buy-in that their local contact up there, he was all for it, and he was able to push it down, so that worked out really well. Plus, one of the things that they wanted to do was just get a lot of exposure, and they definitely accomplished that. So I know you guys can't read this, and I'm just going to basically outline. This was the letter that they drafted to invite the facilities to their closed pod meetings, and it basically just talked about the benefits of becoming a closed pod to the community by taking a portion of the local population out of the open points of dispensing and making it easier for us to reach our goals of the mission in Mississippi is to get the pills in the people. That's what it is, within 48 hours. And how it benefits the facility, because employees would get their medications at their facilities, and it would allow for continuity of operations. No one would have to leave and go stand in a long open point of dispensing line. So for the facility, it shows their commitment to their employees, and it also shows a commitment to the community. You know, just the thought processes that they've put in, the planning that they've put in place before an incident. And of course, the employees, it benefits them because they don't have to go stand in those long, stressful open pod lines. This is the flyer that went out with the letter, and I know you can't see that either, but anyway, it just gives a brief description of open and closed pods. It compares and contrasts open and closed pods. The top picture represents an open pod, Disney line, standing in that line to get your medications. The bottom picture represents a closed pod. They look much happier on the bottom than they do on the top, I'm sure. And then it just gives some of the benefits of becoming a closed pod, which I've mentioned those. It helps to achieve the community dispensing goal more rapidly, decreases the number of people in the open pod lines, protects businesses and their families, business employees and their families, and the continuity of operations. So those are the major benefits. They're really, I was talking to Cindy. Cindy and I are definitely kindred spirits where closed pods are concerned. There are no negatives. They're just, you know, I have thought through this process long and hard, and they're really, if you can get a medical oversight, that was like our one stumbling block. But other than that, there are no negatives. It's a win-win for everyone. So initially, whenever they decided to do this campaign, they wanted to target larger businesses that had 50-plus employees. So they went to their Chamber of Commerce, they got a list, they started, you know, marking those businesses, and then they decided that they didn't want to limit it to anyone. They wanted to include, you know, everyone they possibly could. If they were going to do all this work, all this legwork, you know, think through all these processes, they wanted to get, you know, as much bang to their buck as they could. So they expanded the audience, and they included schools and banks and local power companies, churches, home health and hospice, government agencies, and pharmacies. And the pharmacies, of course, were twofold. They wanted them to enroll as closed pods, and then they wanted to see if they would be willing to volunteer to serve as the medical oversight. And in all of the meetings that they had, there was really a very good sampling of all of these facilities. So they prepared this letter and sent it out. Once they decided who they were going to invite, and they started thinking of the meeting times they wanted to have. They wanted a 10 o'clock, a 12 o'clock, and a 2 o'clock meeting. So they knew that food would definitely be an issue at the noon meeting, but they thought that maybe that would be the only time that a lot of these facilities could send over staff. So they started thinking about food for all of these meetings. They sent out letters to restaurants and just, you know, like fast food chains, and asking if they would be willing to donate food. And they said that they explained a little bit about the closed pod program and how it benefits the local community. And they had a lot of, I mean, they just had, I think really no one told them no. They were all willing to donate food. Just like, you know, just like here, we've had, you know, lunches donated the last couple of days. And so I think everybody, when it comes to emergency preparedness, they really do want to help their community out. Popeyes delivered lunch. That was the noon meeting. That was representative. Probably about the same number of people came to all the meetings, but there was probably about 20, I guess, for each meeting. But the only thing that Popeyes wanted is they wanted a group picture with all of this, and they wanted to, you know, they just wanted to use that for advertising. So it was good advertising for Popeyes, and it was also good advertising for emergency preparedness in that area. Okay, so door prizes. So then they decided that it would be really, really nice if they were able to give just one door prize for, for each of the 3 meetings. So they started contacting businesses to see if they would be willing to donate door prizes. And they ended up getting, the success was incredible. They had big gift baskets, they had like restaurant gift cards, candles. They ended up getting enough door prizes that they were able to give 3 per meeting. So that, I mean, it just worked out really, really nice. So starting about a month before time for the actual meeting, the district DFEP team went face-to-face with every single facility that they had invited. They took their agenda, this is a copy of the agenda, and the information flyer that we saw earlier, and also the letter of invitation. And when they were in the face-to-face meeting with each of these facilities, they asked for their business cards. So about a week before time for the actual meeting, they were also able to send them an email reminder. And this is a copy of the agenda, but I know you can't see it. Everything is just way too small on the screen. That's an outline of the actual agenda for the day. There were guests that came up from Jackson, and with the exception of one guest speaker who had a previous scheduling conflict, they stayed, all the guests that came from Jackson stayed for all 3 meetings. There were 3 what I thought were very, very standout speakers. One was from a hospital, and he told about the benefits of being a closed pod, how that's going to benefit his hospital in the event that we ever have to, request the SNS assets for anything. So he was a real good speaker. He firmly believed in the program. The EMA, the Panola County EMA director, went from a completely different perspective. He told about how these closed pods would benefit the community. And then to me, the best speaker of the day was he was a representative from the Board of Pharmacy, and he opened up by saying that he didn't have a horse in this race. He says, I'm just here because I firmly, firmly believe in this program. And he told all about, from his heart, how he believed firmly in, the closed pod program, how he had come to be a part of the process through our SNS pharmacist consultant, and he brought it all home. He combined the facility with the community perspective, and then just, with his objective perspective. So to me, he was the most convincing. And then just to add a little bit of fun, the district created a closed pod Jeopardy game that they did at the very end. And that is a very young Alex Trebek, for sure. But anyway, and I did not know this. I found this out recently, that this is just a little side note, he has been the host of Jeopardy since 1984, so that's a long, long time. But anyway, so they just developed this closed pod Jeopardy game, and they ask questions such as like algorithms and standing orders. The answer is, what are 2 procedures that must be followed when running a closed pod? What is a medical consultant? And what is a health form information? Those kinds of things. We had gone over all of those things during some of our discussions. So that was a fun part. That was really a fun part of the day. And then we did not realize this, and we don't know how the newspaper got wind that we were going to be doing this. The district said they did not call them, but they got wind that we were going to be doing this campaign, and they sent a reporter over, and he took very, very detailed notes during that whole meeting. And it actually stayed and interviewed some of us afterwards and wrote a really nice long article in the paper that evening. So they considered that a plus because it gave a lot of exposure to emergency preparedness and what the districts are doing for their communities. Is our KIMPACT transportation plan. So in the event of a nerve agent or an organophosphate release, everyone knows that time is of the essence, and plans have to be in place prior to that event, or else people are going to die. More people are going to die. So a couple of years ago, in our KIMPAC planning process, the work group created a template to assist the KIMPAC hospitals. We have 13 host hospitals in the state, and we created a template to guide them into creating internal and external plans for their facility, because we felt like they would be the best ones, especially internally. They would be the only ones that could create that plan. And externally, we felt like that they were the ones that knew what was in their area and what would work best. So we just wanted them to think about who would be the ones that were transporting, what type of security they would need, you know, just the way the whole process would flow, things like that. So earlier this year, whenever we polled our hospitals and asked them, you know, where they were in the planning stage, we found out that a couple of our hospitals had made very good detailed plans, but the majority of our hospitals had not even started. So we knew that this was a problem. So we got together and created this we had this meeting, created this work group, and what our goal was, and this is what we had talked about before the meeting, this was our original goal, is we were going to have one standardized KIMPAC transportation plan that would fit the whole state. So we got to this meeting. We had invited a county EMA, representatives from the KIMPAC hospital, the director of the Bureau of EMS, our logistics chief, and then just, you know, miscellaneous others, operations manager. And we quickly found out that a one-size-fits-all plan would not work in Mississippi at all. I mean, that was determined like 10 minutes into the meeting. So we knew that the only way that we could do this was to go to the county in each of our KIMPAC hospitals and meet with the local officials there and sit down with them, tell them what we needed for them to decide, to think about the processes that needed to be covered, and to develop a plan that was specific to that hospital. We arranged a total of 13 meetings, and to these meetings we invited the local EMA, we invited state and local law enforcement, we invited fire coordinators and fire chiefs and EMS and hospital representatives. And in this meeting, we also found out that some of these people had never heard of the KIMPAC program. So that's a scary thing for us. But we were able to educate them, which was a good thing. So the goal at each of these meetings was to determine a primary, secondary, and tertiary transporting agency. We had put together just an information just a very simple information gathering sheet that we took to each of these meetings that we could just write, we could just capture all of this information, and we just wanted basic information. We had those 3 transporting agencies. We wanted to know the radio capabilities in the vehicles, what type of vehicle that they would be using, and were there drivers, like primary, secondary, and tertiary drivers for each of those vehicles that we could, you know, because not everybody's going to be available at any given time. And it was really interesting because in one of these hospitals, the county coroner is the tertiary transporting agency, and in others, one of the transporting vehicles is a prisoner transport van, and then we've got like some of the schools, the local colleges, they were willing to allow us to use one of their vehicles as a transporting vehicle too. So everybody, once they knew, you know, about KIMPAC, once they knew, you know, that it existed and what we needed, they were very willing to step up and volunteer. So on the heels of that, we found out that the Mississippi Fire Academy was going to be doing a hazmat exercise. And our director of OEPR decided that he wanted to partner with them, that we wanted to partner with them and they were going to be using a chemical spill. That was going to be the hazard. And they decided that it would be an organophosphate, and then we could test our ChemPack transportation plan, the one that we had just written. So we had about, I don't know, less than 2 months probably a lot less than that, to try to put this thing together. Excuse me, I'm sorry. The Mississippi, we call it MEMA, it's the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency, is our call center. That's our 24-hour warning point call center to request the assets of the ChemPack. So for them, I went to them and we talked about what we were going to be doing, and I created just a call, like a notification list. And that's what you're seeing now. I know you can't hardly see it, it's hard to read, but going across the board, you know, of course they called the ChemPack host hospital first, then they called the transportation agency, and, you know, and so on and so on and so on. So we had stopped that. It's so interesting because we had stopped that at the MSDH watch officer before this exercise. And then from the exercise, and I don't know, I didn't even think about this. This is just, I guess because I don't have an emergency response background, I don't know. I didn't even think to add the EMA in each of those counties, the county of the incident, which, you know, chances are they're already going to know that something's going on in their county, but just in case they don't, that needed to be added. That was one of the learning points from the exercise, and also the EMA in the county that the host hospital is in. We also developed a list of pertinent information that the ChemPack requesters should be prepared to give, you know, whenever the call comes in. Basic information, caller name and number, brief description of the incident, the number of casualties, adult and pediatric, the county and city of the incident, the address, location of the incident. And these two, I know they sound like that it might be a duplication, but we've got some, this was from MEMA themselves. This was from the guy, the director that I was working with at MEMA. He suggested that we add the county because in Mississippi we've got like a Panther Burn, Mississippi, and a Chunky, Mississippi, and a So-So, Mississippi. And unless you're a native Mississippian, you're not going to have any idea what county to even start looking for those. So that it's not really a duplication. We wanted them to let us know their MISWING capabilities, the radio capabilities, and a specific drop point for the assets, or any special instructions that the transporting agency may need to get the assets there. And then when MEMA calls the ChemPack hospital, they're just going to provide them basic information, a brief summary of the incident, and, you know, verify that one of the things that we've captured in these meetings is going to be the pickup point for the ChemPack assets in each of the hospitals. And like, especially with our hospital in Jackson, there's always, our big hospital, there's always road closings, and there's, like, you know, renovations or reconstruction going on. So they have you know, part of the road, part of the campus would be blocked. So, you know, they just need to verify that the pickup point that's on that information sheet is the actual pickup point for that day. And if it's changed, they need to know that information. And just any kind of special instructions that would be involved in picking up the assets, just basic information. So then, of course, that's going to require a revised memorandum of agreement, and we're working on that right now between the health department, the ChemPack host hospital, and the transportation agency. And that will be an official MOU. And we've also suggested that the plan become part of the county comprehensive emergency management plan and reviewed annually, and that the hospital make it part of their EOP plan and reviewed annually, just so to make sure that we always have as current as possible information. We host an annual training, a KIMPAC hospital annual training, and we just had that about three weeks ago. During this training, we just go over the KIMPAC plan for any of our new points of contacts that may have just come on board, and we discuss any changes in the KIMPAC plan. And this year we discussed the new KIMPAC MOA, and of course there was quite a lot of discussion about the new dropship sustainment. But as an action item for this training, we asked the hospitals to go back and come together with thought processes to make sure that all of their internal plans were going to line up and touch with this external transportation piece that we had just created. Some of the things that we learned from the full-scale exercise, like I said, was we needed to add the county EMAs, both of the county EMAs. And one of the best suggestions, I thought, was it came from a sheriff, and he suggested that we create a radio channel that's specific for KIMPAC, so that everyone could talk during the actual KIMPAC incident. And I've been in contact with the Wireless Commission, I think it's called the Wireless Commission, and we're actually going to be working on that next week. And that will be part of our upcoming KIMPAC plan. The big thing that we know that we need to work on is education. I don't know how it is in Alabama, but I know in Mississippi this KIMPAC program has been hush-hush for years and years and years. And when I came on board and started being involved in the KIMPAC program a couple years ago, we were just trying to get, they said, and I agree, there's no need in having a KIMPAC program if no one knows about it. If our emergency responders don't know that it's available, then they're not going to know to request the assets. So our big push right now is to try to educate the people that need to know. Not everyone, but the people that need to know. The fire, the law enforcement, the first responders. We're doing a piece in our Triage Tuesday. It's got a KIMPAC component. And we just recently got funding, the EMS got funding to do a learning management piece on, this is actually going to be for credits for CE units, for first responders, so they can go online and learn about KIMPAC. So we are, we're working as hard as we can. Next week we've got the Partners in Preparedness on the coast, and we're going to offer the KIMPAC piece to that too. But it's going to take a long, long time to educate everybody in the state that needs to know that these assets exist. So it's a work in progress. Thank you, you guys. You guys have been wonderfully patient, and I appreciate it.